South Africa's victory, World Rugby champions for the second year running, brings the subject of sports business back into the spotlight on the continent, which also made a name for itself at the last Soccer World Cup, with Morocco reaching the semi-finals, a first for an African team. How are African countries harnessing the economic potential of sport? What role can rugby play on a continent in search of development? We shall be discussing these questions with Mr. Herbert Mensah, President of Rugby Africa since March 2023. Mr. President of Rugby Africa, welcome to Africa 24 studio.
Thank you very much indeed.
South Africa is the world champion for the second time in a row after their victory in the 2023 Rugby World Cup. What impact this consistency of very high performance have on the entire African continent?
No, thank you very much. First and foremost, I have to say, yes, we are the world champions, and we is Africa. We're 1.4 billion Africans, and I think the Springboks won it not only for themselves as South Africans, but for the whole continent of Africa. We shouldn't forget that they won it 4 years ago, and they won it again this time. I think it shows the world what I always say, that the best athletes in the world are from Africa. Whether they are playing for France or for England or for whoever, you find so many Africans. And I think it sends the message that we are the best. If we get the right investment, we can show consistently that we are world beaters.
Historically, when we look at sports, young Africans play more soccer than rugby. According to you, what is your vision of African rugby, and what are you doing within the association to promote these sports on the African continent?
I think you're right. You know, football is the game everybody watches. We are proud of what Africans achieve. Morocco are in the semi-final. We're in the semi-final of the World Cup. Cameroon, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Senegal, Nigeria, Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria are amongst the best in the world. But rugby itself is another great sport. Not big like football, but getting as big. The World Cup final in France this year had 600,000 visitors just for France to watch the World Cup. The revenue for the World Cup is over 2.4 billion American dollars. So you can see the size of this sport. In Africa, as the president, I have 39 countries playing rugby, some small, some big. It's all about investment. And we are hoping that in the next 3.5 years that we're here, we can get more rugby pitches, more infrastructure, more competition time, more gender-sensitive competitions, more age grade under 18, under 20. These are the things that you need to be in place that you see in South Africa today, you see in Zimbabwe, 1 or 2 countries today, that will ensure that rugby in Africa, across the board, not just with 1 or 2 teams, becomes the sport that is owned by Africa.
Mr. Herbert Mensah, it is often said that sport is not sufficiently valued in Africa as an economic and development driver. And in recent years, we've seen a surge in activity in certain countries, especially since the cultural and creative industries have become more widely promoted. How do you view the dynamics of the African sports business?
I think you're absolutely right. You know, sport is big business. That has been my mantra. I've said it over and over again, that we need to understand the size and magnitude of sport. That's number one. In order to bring about change, we need to have a mindset change internally, and mindset change amongst our governments and the agencies that control sports and development. The children are the future. The youth is the future. Over 70% of our beautiful continent is under the age of 30 years old. By 2040, 2050, 30 to 40% of the global world population will be from Africa. Africa has already shown they have the greatest sportsmen. Go to the NBA. They are people of African extract. UFC, is it Ngannou? Is it Usman? It goes on and on if it is from the UFC. Is it boxing? I don't have to speak. Is it long distance runners? Go to East Africa. It will be a Kenyan, a Somalian, an Ethiopian, a Ugandan who will win at the Olympics this year. If it is football, I've already explained. So Africa has what the rest of the world does not have. My point is that we need to get the investment into Africa now. The people who provide funding for development, they should not wait. African businesses and the money that is being invested in Africa needs to invest now. Because if you don't invest now, you will find somebody from Europe, from America, from China coming to own what is yours. It will be like God gave you the gold, but you don't have the gold refinery. You have the cocoa, but you have no chocolate factory. You have the oil, but not the best oil refineries. Surely the time has come that we have the product, which is the human resource. If we invest in that human resource now, through grassroots programs, through college and gender-sensitive programs, age grade operations, you'll have a point where Africa is not only the best, but the investors will be the ones making the money for Africa.
Talking about investment, World Rugby pays up to $5 billion to each European rugby nation to promote the sport, while the entire African continent received just $2.5 million, which limits the promotion of the sport on the continent. How is this issue addressed within the association?
I think it's very true. That's the reality. Um, the figures do not add up. 1.4 billion people, 2.3, $2.4 million, 39 countries. You need to do under 18, under 20 for men, for women. You need to do serious senior rugby. For 15 aside, you need to do sevens. You need to do regional. You need to do cross country. The price of an air ticket from Dakar to Madagascar may be $1,500. In Europe, from Rome to London, Paris to London, maybe 60 euros. So the basis to which operate, if we do not take care, means we can never develop. When sports is going like this, it's become very professional in what you do. You need more investment to reach that point. So we understand that, and we are taking on world rugby on one level, but we also need the governments to also step in. Not enough governments in Africa are involved, interested in developing the infrastructure, stadiums, policies on insurance, Medicare, and the sheer investment that we are seeing across the world. We need governments to get involved. The development partners, they need to develop more. I just came from France and signed a deal between the French Rugby Union, FFR, AFD, Alliance Française Développement, and Rugby Africa, to send people to get involved in training and education on gender-based. If we have that from development arm in France, we have to come back to our own in Africa and ask them to revisit, to relook the basis upon which they are creating models to give out money. And if it is that you get 10 or 20 from Europe, surely you must get 100 or 200 from your own here in Africa. That's one of the reasons I'm here in this beautiful country of Morocco at Marrakesh, to try and persuade the people who control capital and money for them to understand that the investment first should be here in Africa. After all, the raw material, the African athlete, is the best in the world.
Like you rightly said, you are taking part in the 4th edition of the Africa Investment Forum. How can such a forum help in exploring opportunities for sport in Africa?
Look, first, I need to congratulate the organizers for this extraordinary event, because this investment forum, without it, I'm not here talking today. They have created a melting pot for people to discuss opportunity. And I was given the opportunity today to speak for 45 minutes on really what is Africa and the beauty of what is Africa and the fact that sport is big business. So I think that this is the opening. It takes one step to move to the next step. And I would like to think that my visit to Marrakesh, the people that I have met, some very important, some with great ideas, but maybe nobody was thinking about sport in this particular way. Development agencies were not thinking about the development in this way. Maybe there was nobody to talk to them before. Now, I am here, my team is here, and I'm saying, I think what you have done is great. Now is the time to move further. We've spoken enough. We are the world champions. We have the ability. Come talk to us. and let's make Africa a beautifully better place.
So, do you work with other disciplines to mobilize around the goal of promoting the sports business in Africa and the added value it represents for the continent's development?
No, not really. I think we have interactions, as you will find, between presidents of organizations. Everybody has their strategic program. Football, for example, does not need anybody's help. It is a straightforward business to raise money from governments. It's a political tool to raise money from FIFA as well. It's a standard operation. So we have to make it clear what we're doing, try and get them also involved with what we're doing, but understand that the issue of sport being big business, we must lead the way. We must drive what we want to drive. And hopefully everybody converges and moves along with us.
And that's a wrap for this edition of the interview on Africa 24. Stay tuned for more programs on our channel.